Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus 7-Day Challenge, and today we have Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the final film in the Indiana Jones film series starring Harrison Ford. I make that concession, that little bit of detail there. Yeah, we're not going to see an Indiana Jones film again for probably a very long time. I know we're not going to see it. The official the official thing is that we're never going to see another Indiana Jones film, but that is if we know Hollywood, if we know Disney, we know anything. That's a lie. We're going to see another one. We may not live to see it. Okay, I shouldn't say we'll see another one. Somebody will see another one someday down the road. It will be after George, Stephen, Harrison, you and me are all gone. Yeah, we won't get to see it. And we can't just get angry about it on the internet then either. But, hey, hopefully maybe we'll get some way to lengthen our lives, like the Holy Grail or something, maybe. Maybe that'll help us. But, yeah. This is an 2-hour and 37-minute long film. It is the longest by far of any Indiana Jones film. And it shows it. I don't think it needed to be that long, but I think it's also the kind of thing where they're going out with a bang. They're going to give us as much as they can for our money's worth. And most movies these days do not tend to hover around the 2-hour mark or less. When you got big, epic action films with classic characters that are beloved, you're going to want to really just milk it for all it's worth. You could just really spend that money, do that effects budget, and just give us a story that lasts 2.5 hours. Now, this is not a Steven Spielberg directed film. It is directed by James Mangold. He's done his share of other films, but most notably you'll know him as the director of Logan, the Wolverine film that was not called Wolverine. And probably easily the best of the Wolverine films. Just gotta say that. Yeah, it is. So he was brought on to take the reins of Steven Spielberg that nobody else, I think, dared. The idea that you're going to have a story that is an Indiana Jones story that isn't directed by Steven Spielberg was kind of blasphemy. But I think we also had that kind of feeling when it came to Jurassic Park too, although I guess since Lost World didn't do as well, anybody was like, you know what, let's give 3 to somebody else. And then Jurassic World, oh yeah, we're going to do all those, and we'll put Chris Pratt in them, who is in everything now. He is Garfield. And actually, there was a time, I think I remember a time, that there was a rumor that if they make another Indiana Jones film, this is back after Crystal Skull, and when Chris Pratt was rising in stardom, that he was eyed to be the next Indiana Jones. Yeah. So what they've done with this film is they've wrapped up the story of Indiana Jones as portrayed by Harrison Ford. Anything else I just told you is speculation on my part, but I'm pretty sure I could place a bet on it, and my ancestors would make out pretty well if I had ancestors. So what we get here is its story. Indiana Jones it's the late 60s. I wanted to check this. I forgot to check when the Apollo 11 came back. The astronauts came back, and it's taking place around the time when that parade happens. And I can't remember exactly what year that was offhand. I feel really dumb, as I should. But that's to give you an idea of the place and time. And they may have even put the date on the screen, and I just blanked and didn't recall that. But as they often do in the previous films, we see Indy alone teaching school. And just so you know, I'm not going to spoil the major parts of the film, the twists and the certain things. I'm going to tell you who some of the characters are. I won't reveal everybody who appears in it. Or doesn't appear in it, or why. Those of you who have seen the film know what I'm talking about. But yeah, what we have here is an Indiana Jones film where Indy is retired. He literally retires in this film from teaching even, And it's not all fortune and glory anymore. He's not out there running around. He's an older guy, and yeah, I think there was a rule on set that, or at least when it comes to writing this, that do not make a big deal about how old he is. Do not keep repeating that, yes, he's old, he's out of touch, he's not able to do what he's able to do before. There is some references to that to understand how he's hurts. It can't exactly just do all the crazy stunts he's done in the past. But, yeah, because you can't ignore that. It's a component of the film. And is he past his prime? Is he no longer relevant? Is he a man? Just what's his purpose? And he has suffered a bit of loss. He is alone. You'll notice that since this does take place well after Crystal Skull, which I think happened in 1957. I've already forgotten. It was just yesterday. So what happened after that? Why is he alone? He soon comes into contact with a young woman played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who is his goddaughter. Now, this is all, I got ahead of myself here a little bit, only because as it is with every action film and the structure of just about any film, but especially an Indiana Jones film, you have to start off within the first 5 minutes. A friend of mine has a book that taught me all about this. The first 5 minutes has to have a big action sequence to pull you into the film. Big. And Indiana Jones films always do that, but are they going to just start you off with a big action film with the older Indiana Jones, who's now, remember, he was born in the year 1900. He is a 20th century man, even though the year 1900 is technically the 19th century. So, technically, if it's the late 60s, he is in his late 60s. So, yeah, we can't have a big action sequence that really pays off. So what do? We flash back. We start off the movie in the 1940s. Yes, the mid 40s, just as World War II is winding down, and we get an action sequence that takes place against, yes, Nazis, the best and the worst bad guys, grounded bad guys, as in real people that deserve to be beaten to a pulp and blown up and shot by Indiana Jones. Just the way it is. He's not going to be fighting Godzilla. He's not going to be fighting, Rocky Balboa. It's none of this, random stuff. Nazis who Indy fights best, and for good reason. So, if you're Nazi watching this, hi, go away. Anyway, he's fighting the Nazis, and you're like, well, Harrison Ford, they got a different guy, younger, like they did with River Phoenix when he was a teenager. That teenage Indiana Jones, they did that, right? No, they didn't. Harrison Ford played the entire role, but they digitally de-aged him, and that is, I know, a very controversial thing with a lot of films. A lot of films do it badly, very badly. One instance where they did it pretty good, I think they did really good with Michael Douglas in the Ant-Man film, a really good de-aging of him, but it's costly. It's not a thing that that it can be done like for the whole film. It's going to get cheaper and cheaper as things go on, and the fear is, of course, that AI will be that thing that will automatically just make generic actor number one, who just did all the motions, wrap them, and sometimes not even wrap them, just to have an empty space and fill it with a avatar that looks like Harrison Ford. In not too many years from now, that is going to be possible on my home computer, on my phone probably. I could probably make an Indiana Jones film on my phone that looks like Harrison Ford is in it, if we bother to let ourselves do that. It's what a lot of the strike and everything else that happened this past summer was all about. And it's not letting actors sign off their likeness to have films made with them in it, but not. So in this, though, getting back to the point, in this, we have a de-aged Harrison Ford, and it looks great. It actually does look fantastic. It's not great 100% of the time. There are moments that it gets a little rough around the edges, and it looks very computery or a little bland. It doesn't look realistic, but any shot where it's him face on, great. Turns to the left or the right or whatever. Yeah, I did that backwards. It doesn't necessarily always track. And yeah, it's Harrison Ford with dots on his face more than likely. You know what, there's probably a documentary out there, if not now, but soon. But yeah, he's doing this whole long non-action sequences, because when there's an actual action sequence, there's no reason to put Harrison Ford on top of a train moving 100 miles an hour in the wind or whatever. And that's not even a thing, because it was done on a soundstage more than likely. There's no reason to have him doing crazy wild stunts. There's a stuntman who gets Harrison Ford's face, at least a lesser version, because, motion, you don't really need to see a clear shot. But whenever the camera is still and right on Harrison, he looks fantastic. He looks like Raiders of the Lost Ark Indiana Jones. And that is just fun. And yes, like I said, I saw where it got weak here and there. There's a part later in the modern day where he is his older self, and he's supposed to be riding a horse down the streets of New York City, and guess what? It looks bad. You saw the trailer, it looked bad. No, it was not good. And it was the first thing that made me go, oh, God, please no. Please don't. No. But that was not the sequence that I'm talking about, this very first opening sequence, fighting the Nazis in a big, elaborate, just chase and fighting and all sorts of other stuff that Indiana Jones is known for, and he excels at. And this is not a disappointment by any means. Again, anybody, I think, that poo-poos this film, for the most part, who are my age, who grew up with this, it's never going to live up to your expectations, period. It's never going to exceed your expectations. Anything that did not take place in the 80s, is not, and now that we're all older, Harrison Ford is older, I am older, you are older, it's not going to live up to your expectations, ever. It's just a thing we have to deal with. And why is this? Because we look at Indiana Jones, we look at Harrison Ford, we look at Han Solo and Luke Skywalker and Carrie Fisher. We look at all of them and go, oh, what about that action film where Luke is in his prime and Princess Leia is beautiful and she's with the young Han Solo and they have kids, they're like little ones, and like, let's do the expanded universe story. We can't do that. Technically we could, but it's not the 90s. And if we were going to do that, if George was going to do that, it would have happened in the 90s. If we wanted a young Indiana Jones doing all the stunts he was doing before, we would have seen another Indiana Jones in the early 90s starring Harrison Ford, directed by Steven Spielberg. But he was busy with Jurassic Park and Schindler's List, so he wasn't making any more Indiana Jones films at that point. So he had to try something new. And this worked out pretty well for him, I think. Yeah, it was pretty great. Just get a grip. That's the whole point of this, is that the movies that show our heroes just aging and getting, just creaking along, sometimes really upsets people. It really, really upsets some people, and I don't know if they understand why it upsets them. I don't think they realize they're upset for that reason. They just automatically pre-hate something because it reminds them that things aren't the way they used to be. Yeah, I feel like I'm still a 19-year-old inside this body. in my head, I'm still a young buck, but I'm not. I'm not. Harrison Ford probably feels like a young buck, but he shouldn't be doing any of the stunts he was doing when he was in Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's just the way it is. We can't turn back time. Ooh, nice little reference to the Dial of Destiny, which I'm getting back to now. The Dial of Destiny, what is that all about? Well, you're going to have to find out. I'm not going to really tell you about it. I mean, one of the other things that people might be a little weirded out by is the fact that sometimes things get a little fantastical. Are you sure? Like you can't buy into the concept in the Dial of Destiny. Those of you who've seen it, you can't buy into that. You can't buy into the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull concept when you watched you watched the power of God come out of the Ark of the Covenant and melt people's faces. You could deal with the idea of Indy coming face to face with a Templar knight who had been sitting inside a cave for 1,000 years, almost. I mean, and then drinking water out of the right cup to save his father's life. Spoilers for Last Crusade. You could buy all that, but you can't buy this. Every Indiana Jones film brushes up against just the fantastical, the mysterious, the mythological, the supernatural, and this takes it in a direction that. Yeah, there's an old artifact that has to be sought out, a big MacGuffin that has to be found, and the bad guys are after it too, who are Nazis, but modern day or 60s era Nazis, and also Mad Mikkelsen, who makes a great bad guy. Of course, he always makes a great bad guy. I want to go down a list of some of the other actors you might recognize in this. Like I said, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Fleabag, and she was also L337 in the Solo film. So technically, she's worked with both Han Solos, young and old. Let's see. Toby Jones, who plays Basil Shaw, which is one of Indiana Jones. We just learned one of his great best friends and the father of Phoebe Waller-Bridge in this film. He was a buddy of his back in the war times. And Toby Jones, you know him, he used to play a Nazi in the Captain America films. He was Arnim Zola. So everybody gets to be a Nazi at some point, I guess. I said Mad Mikkelsen. I'm not going to ruin some names here for a few others or characters either. But there's some faces. But I will tell you, I think it might have been shown in the trailers, but Antonio Banderas makes an appearance in this as a brand new character. So I say, honestly, if you haven't checked this out in the theaters, I know some people might have skipped it. It is a good closer to the era of Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones. Who picks up that mantle next? Will it be an AI character? 30, 40, 5 years from now? Will it be another actor who sort of reboots the franchise? Is there a hunger for more Indiana Jones films, considering the box office of this last one wasn't as great? Give it another era. Give it another generation. And these will be seen as classics, especially the original three, but they'll be seen as iconic classics that harken back to an even older day, nearly 80 years prior to when they were made, or 100 years prior to when they were made. No, something like that. 50 years, 60 years prior to when they were made. But 50. Anyway, this is the kind of thing that it comes around. It's like sci-fi or horror or even westerns. These kind of things, the genres come and go in popularity. And whether the time of Indiana Jones is done, that's great. I think we have a good closer. And is it the greatest movie ever made? No, it is not. It is the greatest Indiana Jones movie ever made? No, it is not. But I had a good time, I had a great time, and it was fun to experience just one more trip with Harrison Ford playing good old Indiana Jones once again. Speaking of which, I've already picked out tomorrow's episode, so I don't need to randomly select it today. Something else premiered right along with this. And by the way, it hit midnight and I started watching this. So I'm watching this earlier in the, like, December 1st at midnight. It's after 3 a.m. now because I've been talking for 20 minutes. So the next thing we're going to do to cap this all off is watch a documentary called Timeless Heroes, Indiana Jones and Harrison Ford, talking about the entire epic career of this actor with this character and how, beyond Han Solo, defined him for a generation. So, yeah, let's get ready for that. Tomorrow, Timeless Heroes, Indiana Jones and Harrison Ford in the next Disney Plus Everyday Challenge. I'll see you back here tomorrow with that.